Hello everybody and welcome to this video. It'll be slightly different from the others as we'll not be talking so much of the history behind the P38 aircraft but rather the building of the cockpit in this Tamiya kit along with some extras from an Eduard detail set. And once all the parts have been cut away, it's time to start assembling the model or the cockpit. And we'll start with dry fitting. As you can see, all the parts fit together really well, and for many of the parts you might not actually need any glue. However, we'll be doing some minor modifications to, among other things, the cockpit panel, and we're starting with the rudder pedals that are photo etch. One thing to keep in mind with this detail set is that I think it's made from aluminium, but it's a lot harder than the brass that we're normally used to. So for instance, when you're dealing with a spruce or other sharp nubs, use a tweezer to keep it tight and then just sand off the little nub. And rather than measuring once and cutting twice, one important thing is check the fit of the part before you remove the old one. And to glue metal parts to plastic, you can either use super glue or PVA glue or white glue as it's also known, but you can't use the normal plastic cement. Moving on. The scariest part about using an extra detail set is cutting off the plastic parts. One trick here is to decide beforehand which parts you're going to use, mark them off on the plastic parts, and remove only those. That way you don't need to fear accidentally removing any plastic parts that you might want to keep. And obviously all of the parts that are being removed will be replaced with new levers or switches or knobs that come from the detail set. And if you're wondering, yes, this is scary. There's no going back. And while some parts are nice to use super glue, when it comes to the cockpit parts, especially the panel, by using white glue you get a little bit more working time. So as you can see, after putting it down you still have 30 seconds up to a minute of working time to get everything in a position that you're happy with. And as if the detail set wasn't enough, I'm also adding electrical cables and hydraulic lines using bent brass rod. Just don't use as much super glue as I'm using here. This is a little bit too much. And to make it easier to paint the metal parts, you can also use a metal primer to make the paint stick a little bit more. And the nest of wires that you see here connect from the cockpit up until the radio compartment just behind the pilot. And we'll be getting back to that in a little while. For brush painting, I like the 3rd generation acrylics from AK, and for the leather at the bottom of the control stick, it was based in a, well, not too dark brown, with shadows using even darker, and using buff and deck tan and mixes of all of these paints to try and create some life in the leather. This particular aircraft, Miss Virginia, was stationed in the South Pacific on Guadalcanal. So, to start weathering the cockpit, I start by applying a neutral brown wash on most of the parts, and once that has been allowed to dry for 10-15 minutes, I wipe off the excess with a cotton bud moistened in enamel thinner or white spirit. To try to make the cockpit look a little bit more lived in, I dry brush on some oil paints with various different types, but mostly sandy earth and dusty earth oil brushes. These are applied just close to the floor and near corners, and where you wouldn't reach when you're cleaning the aircraft. Which brings us to final assembly of the cockpit. Unfortunately, my camera started acting up a little bit and I've lost some of the footage from the rest of the cockpit build and the radio compartment. But what I'm doing here is that I'm doing a little bit of paint touch up, but I've got way too much paint on my brush. So don't do it this way. This is better. To create scratches on the seat, I use weathering pencils with aluminium and dark aluminium from AK, and to weather the seat belts, I use panel liners and oil brushers with Pacific dust and dusty earth and a little bit of Starship filth, just to make everything look a little bit dirty and again live it in. After all, this was a warplane stationed in the South Pacific, and it would see quite a lot of use. So that's about it for this video. It's a little bit different from my other videos, but in the next one we'll be looking at the design of the P38 and also one of its most famous missions, the intercept mission to shoot down the plane of Japanese Admiral Yamamoto Isuroku. If you liked this video, great. If you didn't, also great, but I would really like if you told me why, so that the next video can be better. So again, thanks for watching, and I'll talk to you again soon. Bye bye.